All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're jumping into a huge topic, philosophy. I mean, what even is it, really? Where did it come from? And maybe most importantly, in our crazy, fast-paced world, why should you even care? So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll ask a kind of provocative question. Is philosophy just a hobby for people with full stomachs? Then we'll trace the long, long road to how we even started thinking deeply. We'll look at the big questions that drive it all, create a sort of map of the mind, and wrap up with why any of this still matters today. Okay, so first step, a full stomach hobby. Let's dig into this surprising first condition for asking life's big questions. It's a pretty wild idea, actually. Take a look at this quote. It's pretty powerful, right? The poet is painting this really stark picture. You've got two people who've just been shot, and with their dying breaths, one is talking about God, the other about politics. Why? Because they were full. They could afford to think about big ideas. But the third guy? He's starving. So what's on his mind? Not God, not politics, but a potato. It's this raw idea that things like ideology, well, they're luxuries that you can only afford after your basic needs are met. And that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? Philosophy, this deep thinking, it isn't born from that frantic, day-to-day struggle for survival. No, it's something that can only really grow in the quiet moments after. I mean, if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, you're not exactly going to have the time or energy to sit around and ponder the meaning of the universe. And this whole pursuit of deeper meaning, it looked different in different parts of the world. So in the Eastern tradition, you have this idea of darshan. It's all about seeing, not just with your eyes, but perceiving the reality that's hidden just beneath the surface. Now contrast that with the West. The word philosophy literally breaks down to love of wisdom. So it's more about this active, passionate quest for knowledge. One is about profound sight. The other is about a passionate love affair with wisdom. Kind of cool, right? All right, so the long road to thinking. How did we get from just surviving to actually thinking these big thoughts? Well, for that, we've got to zoom out, like way, way out. Look at this timeline. It puts everything into perspective. Think about it this way. If the entire 4.5 billion year history of the universe was condensed into a single calendar year, right? Our species, Homo sapiens, we wouldn't even show up until about 11:58 p.m. on December 31st. And philosophy, the first big questions, that's literally the last few seconds before the ball drops at midnight. We are so late to this party, it's not even funny. So what was the spark? What kicked this whole thing off? It really comes down to one simple number: 2. The second our ancestors stood up and started walking on two legs, we got two free hands. And those hands, they changed everything. They weren't just for grabbing berries anymore. They were for building, for creating tools, for literally shaping the world around us and laying the groundwork for civilization. And along with those free hands, we got a serious hardware upgrade upstairs. Just look at this. Our brain size literally more than doubled from our early ancestors to us. That is a massive leap in processing power. And that cognitive horsepower was the engine that drove everything else. All that extra brain power led to this perfect storm. First, what we call the cognitive revolution. Suddenly, we could imagine stuff that wasn't physically there. Think about it. Gods, myths, money, laws. These are all just ideas we collectively agree on. And then bam, the agricultural revolution hits. And for the first time, we have a surplus of food. So you've got this amazing new imagination, a way to share those ideas, and you're not starving all the time. That's it. That's the recipe for philosophy. Full stomachs, free time. The stage was finally set. Okay, so now we get to the good stuff, the big questions. With our survival basically sorted, where did our minds go? I mean, come on. Who hasn't stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. and asked these questions? Who am I? Like, really? Where did all this come from? What happens after? Is this it? These aren't just random thoughts. These are the questions, the ones that have kept people up at night for thousands of years. This is the stuff philosophy is made of. And this is exactly why people say philosophy is the mother of all sciences. Think about it. Before there was physics, before there was biology, before there was psychology, there was just philosophy. People asking, what is the world made of? Or what makes living things tick? Those big philosophical questions were the seeds. Everything else grew from them.
So how do you even start to tackle these massive questions? Well, philosophers did what we all do when we're overwhelmed. They started to organize. They created a kind of map of the mind.
All right, first stop on our map, metaphysics. And boy, this is the big one. This is the branch that asks the heaviest questions of all. What is reality really? What is existence? Is there anything beyond what we can see and touch? So under this huge umbrella of metaphysics, you've got a few key areas. There's cosmology, how did the universe get here? Then there's theology, which asks, does God exist? And if so, what's God like? And interestingly, this is also where early psychology lived. The big question was about the soul. Am I just this meat suit, this body? Or is there something more, a me inside? Okay, next stop on the map, epistemology. Now this one is a bit of a mind bender. It switches things up. It's not so much about what we know, but how we know it. It's the philosophy of knowledge itself, and it boils down to one really tricky question. How do you know that what you know is actually true? And this is where things get really interesting. You start asking things like, what even counts as proof? Can you really trust your own eyes and ears all the time? What's the actual difference between just believing something and something being true? It's all about poking holes in our certainty and making us question the very ground we stand on. Our last major region on this map is axiology, and this is all about value. This is where philosophy really gets personal, because it's asking what we think is good, what's right, and what's beautiful.
So axiology basically splits in two. On one side, you have ethics. That's the big one about morality. It's asking, how should we live? What does it even mean to be a good person? And on the other side, you have aesthetics. This is all about beauty and art. It asks questions like, is something beautiful because of its own qualities? Or is beauty just in the eye of the beholder? Is that sunset beautiful if no one is there to see it?
Okay, so after all that, this whirlwind tour of everything, you have to ask, right, why does any of this matter today? What's the point?
Here's the thing. The point of philosophy isn't really to find some neat, tidy answer to everything. It's more about what Socrates said here. The real wisdom is in realizing just how much you don't know. It's about reaching this state of, you could call it enlightened ignorance.
See, philosophy doesn't hand you a cheat sheet with all the answers. It's not going to tell you for sure if there's a God or what the meaning of life is. But it gives you something way more powerful. It gives you the tools to understand just how deep and complex the questions are. And once you have that, you gain a kind of superpower. You become immune to people who try to sell you easy, simple answers to life's hardest problems.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Remember? Philosophy is what happens when we finally get some free time. So I guess the final question is for you. In our world, a world that is just jam-packed with distractions, with all this free time we have, what are the big questions we should be asking right now?